Hope everything's going well for you. You're getting ready to go down to Christmas coming up, so hopefully you're done with all your Christmas shopping and everything. Maybe not. So today we're going to be talking about empowerment through mentorship, leveraging coaching, mentoring, and knowledge transfer for project excellence. Now, the reason why this is an important topic, for those of you who already have your PMP, you maybe have not noticed a little bit of a change with PMI, but for those of you who are thinking about getting your PMP, you will notice that one of the things they have done is they've made an adjustment to the exam content outline. And one of the adjustments is an emphasis on knowledge transfer and coaching and mentoring. Now, coaching and mentoring has actually is not something new. We've been doing this in the business world since the 70s. However, one of the things that many of you maybe have noticed is that as you've gone through your career, is that the idea of mentoring and coaching people was kind of looked at as almost negative by some populations, because the thought was, if I share everything with you and tell you how to do this, what's going to happen, now that you know how to do it, what's going to happen to my job, what's going to happen with the skills that I have. And so as you saw baby boomers coming to the end of their career, some people were a little more skittish on mentoring and coaching and those type of things. Now, in the last 3 to 5 years, you've been seeing more and more baby boomers retiring. And so what that has actually done is that has actually increased the capability of mentoring and coaching, because Gen X and millennials are very, very open. Almost every survey you look at, they're super open to the fact of being able to be coached and mentored. But if you look at where they are in their career, it even makes sense, because Gen X is somewhere in the middle of their career, or are just about to the middle, and then you see millennials who are coming along. So they're very much open to this. Well, PMI has put more of this into the PMP test, and PMI is emphasizing this more in PMBOK 7. So let's take a look at a few things here and kind of walk through this. So there's some key words. Let's make sure we've interpreted them the way that we would like as we talk about them. So the first is empowerment. Empowerment's not a new word. It's, like I said, it's a word that's been around for a while, but it's the process of becoming stronger or more confident. And so we are empowering that person to be able to become more confident, more stronger in their knowledge is really what you're doing. And the one piece that just because of being a 1-hour webinar, it's that piece of transferring responsibility and authority over to them. You're empowering them to do something, not just blindly. You're training them and equipping them first, but you're transferring that over. The second one is the mentor. This is a person who guides, supports, encourages someone less experienced. So some of you have been very blessed in your career to have somebody who mentored you. It maybe not now, but some point in your life. The other term would be mentee. That's the person receiving the guidance and support from a mentor. Now, we might be mentoring people in some places, and we might be the mentee in some places. And so the point is that if you're on the chart to try to continue to learn, then you constantly are doing this. One of the cool things that I keep reading about, and many of you probably have known this for some time, is seeing how many groups are out there for women in mentoring them in starting their own business, or mentoring them how to go up through the organization, or mentoring them at the CEO or at the C-suite level. And I think that's absolutely a great idea, because once again, you're being able to pass along some of that information. Goal setting is another piece of this. And so we're defining it as creating specific objectives to achieve over time. One of the side effects of this goal setting is not just a goal, but what kind of behaviors is it going to take to be able to support this? So this comes along with that. Self-reflection. Sometimes people don't include this in coaching, but it's thinking about personal experiences to understand oneself better. Those of you who've been through emotional intelligence training with me, or you've been through emotional intelligence training with someone, you know that self-reflection is a piece of it, because we have a tendency to kind of do our own retrospective or lessons learned on what have we learned and what would we do different. And that allows us to be able to make some significant changes. Now, the foundations of mentoring and coaching that we're talking about, let me give you one that is one of the historical ones. It goes back to 2015, and I thought this was really a good one. This is actually Fulick and Verbos has this theory, and so they have foundational theories and processes supporting mentorship. And so what they did is they talked about the psychological empowerment theory of how to be able to empower people, not just physically, but psychologically. And some sometimes that's the bigger challenge that you'll see, is trying to get people to believe they can make that decision, to believe that they have the knowledge to do that. The second side of this that you'll see is the relational and cultural theory. And so what happens is that being able to trust myself in this culture and with the relationships I have. And so what we see a lot of times with a relationship and a cultural theory, the fear sometimes is, how can I get comfortable in who I am? How can I get comfortable in my new position? And so a lot of that, sure, it takes a little bit of time to do that. And then the third piece of this was the transformational mentorship model. And so what you're trying to do when you're mentoring and coaching someone is you're trying to transform them, transform their skills, their thinking habits, and their behavior, no doubt about it. Now, when I talk about the coaching piece, I'm not talking about discipline. I know that many companies have changed the progressive discipline terminology to coaching. We're going to coach him, we're going to coach her, and what that means is you're going to discipline them, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to come alongside someone and be able to give them encouragement and be able to give them some direction. And so transformational mentorship model, that's really what you're doing. You're trying to take a person from where they are and transforming them over here with new behaviors and new thought processes. All right, so let's talk about the psychological empowerment theory. So when you look at this, you're looking at meaning, competency, self-determination, and impact. And so a lot of times what we will have is that we will have people who have a lot of self-determination. They want to move up in the company. They obviously want to make more money. They want to have an impact. And so those two quadrants are not necessarily the problem. But you will find yourself having a challenge with them understanding the meaning and also having the competencies. The competencies are going to be those skills that they're given and that they develop over time. So it takes time to build those competencies. But self-determination, many times people just, they believe in themselves. They believe what's going on. They believe what's happening, that they have the capability for success. And that's a tremendous starting point in these cases. The psychological empowerment theory, when you look at this, it defines empowerment as an internal process driven by meaning, competence, self-determination, and impact. So think about what this definition is telling you. Internal process. What is the process I have to be able to bring meaning to my life, to bring competence to my life, to bring self-determination and impact to my life? What is that process? And the thing is that all of us have some level of process that we yield to try to bring some of this. The other side of this is in mentorship. It's when focused on these elements, it boosts the mentee's sense of purpose, confidence, autonomy, and influence. Does the mentee understand why you're wanting them to have this? Does the mentee understand why this behavior is so important? Do they understand how to be able to put this into play into their own life? The thing is that a lot of times that's one of those gap areas, and you find yourself having to kind of spell it out for a little while and walk through it with them. And then what you'll notice is that they all of a sudden start catching on to tremendously, excuse me, to all those ideas. All right, so let's look at the relational cultural theory. So it basically has four different parts. So it has the core, the communication, collaboration, and growth. And so the idea that you're going to see behind some of these theories that we're going to talk about here in just with all of this is that idea of continuous improvement. Regardless of age, regardless of what you're bringing to the table, regardless how long you've been in the workplace, are you still growing? I can't lead you someplace as a coach or a mentor if I'm not growing. And so I'm not going to arrive someplace. My degrees, my credentials, my experience, I'm still not going to arrive someplace. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to be growing until I take my last breath. So you're looking at the core, the communication, collaboration. So for core, this represents values, trust, respect, authenticity. Are we real with the person? Are we delivering something in that coaching session or that mentoring session that's pie in the sky that we even don't try to keep? That's the point. Are we real? And when we talk about the communication piece, this is effective. Relational culture relies on transparent communication. We are not experts in everything. We will not be perfect in everything, and we will not be successful in everything. So can we talk through some of those hiccups that we've even had with that person we're mentoring, and be transparent and do it in such a way that it's going to be beneficial for them? When you see the collaboration component here, this focuses on working together, offering support, engaging in problem solving. Of course, you're able to make good decisions or better decisions. You know why? We all are. Where we are now, we make better decisions than we did at another time because we made bad decisions back then. And so we've learned over time. Well, guess what? You're trying to bridge the gap with this person you're coaching and mentoring to keep them from having to have these same kind of hiccups. So you want them to be able to understand some patterns here. And then ultimately that brings that growth. Each person fosters growth where people feel valued. And so if the organization is making people feel valued and putting something into them and coaching and encouraging, then that person ultimately feels valued, and they're going to have growth over time in using and utilizing some of these new skills. So relationship cultural theory states that growth occurs through mutually empowering relationships. Mentoring fosters growth by both mentor and mentee via respect, empathy, and emotional support. Now, here's the thing that I've noticed, and maybe you have too, is that if I'm mentoring someone or coaching someone, I probably grow as much as they do because I'm kind of looking at certain things I'm going to talk about or teach or be able to talk about in that gap area. And so in order to do that, I find myself kind of rehearsing or refreshing it in my mind, which allows me then to be able to use it with them. Now, let's talk about the transformational mentorship model. So you've got a foundation, you've got a connection, you've got growth, and then you've got transformation. Is it possible to watch people change in front of you while you're working with them? And the answer is yes. You've seen it in every kind of industry there is. You see it in every kind of company, every kind of management structure, and we can help people to change. But obviously, I can't make them change. They have a volitional choice. They can vote no, and even though I'm giving them such awesome advice. And isn't that how we think? Well, of course we do. We think about that advice. But the point is they might not buy into it, or they might not believe it. So when we talk about the foundational piece here, that's what you're trying to do, is lay that foundation. That's one of the clumsiest areas, I think, and depending on how much you know about the person and how much they know about you. And then the connection and the growth, over time, you start making that connection and that growth, and then you'll see them transform. One of the things I like to look at too, just to give you an example of this, is as many of you know, if you've heard me speak, I've talked about being a doctoral chair. Well, when I first get the doctoral candidate, they don't have a clue who I am. They've never worked with me before. And the sad thing about this is that you're trying to help them as they write their dissertation, and you're giving them feedback. And sometimes you're giving them some feedback that they don't want to hear because they believe they know what they're wanting to do. And so the thing is that foundation has to be established in order to get them to the point of growing and transforming not only them, but also their mindset and also their dissertation. You're having to get them to make that connection so that they are open to that growth and open to that transformation. And when it happens, it's wonderful. And that's what we see a lot of times with working with people as a coach. All right, so transformational mentorship model. This model promotes mentorship that builds skills. It inspires higher aspirations. It develops leadership qualities. And so what you're doing is stretching that person in their thought process and skill level, but you're stretching them to think differently tomorrow than they do right now. You're getting them to weigh in on a lot of things in their mind and for solutions that maybe they've never considered. Transformational mentors provide a vision that empowers the mentee to take initiative. And that's exactly what we're wanting our workers to do. That's exactly what we're wanting people around us. Take initiative. You're not going to have all the information. Don't we know that? We know that we're not going to have all the information. We know that we're not going to be able to take care of every risk. And so you take what information you can based on the time period that you have, and you make it the best decision you can, and then you work it. And that's what you do. And sometimes you're putting out fires as you go, but you have to work that. Then some best practices for empowerment. Since empowerment is really coming even stronger today, and part of it is being driven because we've got remote workers everywhere around the world. We've got remote teams everywhere around the world. You don't have a supervisor watching every move that a person makes. So you've got to have somebody who's empowered to be able to make some decisions and be able to do work. So it works in association with leadership, which focuses on inspiring and motivating followers to put the team and the organization first, to take ownership of their behavior and their work. work. So I'm not wanting to have to spoon feed someone to do everything. And I know you don't either. I'm wanting to be able to give them the concept or the range of what they need to do and let them cut them loose and let them do it. And then we come back and can evaluate it and coach them and do a retrospective or lessons learned on what they did and help them see what the gaps are. But the truth is, you want them to be empowered. That's not a threat to you and I as a supervisor. That's actually an honor to you and I when they can do the job with us giving them basic concepts and we're not having to micromanage that resource, okay? So that's going to be a good thing. Our goal should be, how can I get you to where you're making most of your decisions in any job I give you? That's what we're shooting for. All right, one of the core principles of leadership, and leadership is absolutely something you're trying to teach that person that reports to you because they're having to lead themselves and they're influencing other situations. So one of the core principles I thought was interesting was idolized influence. Leaders serve as role models. They follow high standards of behavior and integrity. One of the books I'm reading right now is about a SEAL team, and they're talking about this very thing of high standards and integrity. And that when we start letting those high standards slip, it starts impacting the integrity and the behavior of that team. And I thought it was an interesting example where in this book, the author was who's a SEAL was talking about how they did not call another SEAL on a particular behavior that they were starting to be lazy with. And then when they got into combat in Iraq, that one of the things that happened was some of the team members got hurt. I don't think anyone died, but someone got hurt because this person was getting kind of sloppy with some of the standards. And I thought, what a great example for what we're doing in projects. So many times in project management, we will see people not performing or not doing what they should be doing, and sometimes we hesitate to call them on it in a nice way, but call them on it because they're our friend or we're working with them every day. And this author says, no, we should be calling them on it because you want them to do the standard, whatever that standard is, and meet that. But I just thought, what a great example that they gave. The next piece would be inspirational motivation. Now, we're not talking about swinging from chandeliers, okay? So you're not coming in and, okay, we're all right, give me a cheer, give me an M, give me an O, give me a T. No, we're not talking about that silly stuff. Some of that is fun, it's laughter, but the truth is that's not what we're going for. You are inspiring motivation because they're seeing you work through these various situations. So leaders communicate a compelling vision that inspires team members to reach higher levels of performance. Can I be better tomorrow? Not just deliver more in the job, but can I be better tomorrow? Can I be someone who's self-motivated? My goodness, if we've ever needed self-motivation, I think you would agree we need it today with all the remote workers. We don't need remote workers who we're having to try to micromanage and they're someplace, hundreds or thousands of miles away. That's very, very difficult. The other piece of this, let me make sure I didn't miss something. So the other piece of this would be intellectual stimulation. Leaders encourage and keep everyone open to trying new things and innovations with technology and techniques. Now let me pinpoint something. At the end of this, I'm going to talk about a new offering that we're going to have in January. We've got a new newsletter coming out that I want to talk about and show you. I'm going to show you the cover page for it, and that way you'll know what you're getting. The newest technology that is changing business right now, as many of you who've been in classes with me, is artificial intelligence. And so you as a project manager need to have a good understanding of artificial intelligence. You need to, it's not a situation where everything's perfect or everything's bad. It's a situation to where you understand the talking points of it. So intellectual stimulation is, am I updated? Am I staying updated? You might be a person who's much older than I am, and you're exactly where you need to be. You're updated on everything. Or you might be a real young person who's in the workplace and not be updated at all. So it's not an age thing that sometimes we think about. It's a matter of, are we hungry for that information? And then individual consideration. Leaders provide individual support, recognize everyone's unique needs, their strengths, and we do have a variety of needs and strengths with so much of what we're doing. And one of the things that we get into so many times is that because those needs are there, and some of it's in the training area, but even when you're mentoring and coaching someone, you're going to train and equip. One person may be a little bit different than the other, just because of what they brought to the table. And so it's going to be important to consider that. So core principles of participative management. Everything we do revolves around participative management. We're looking at those core principles to be able to use this and to be able to deliver this to the people that we're mentoring. And so this has three different sections to it. So the first is that open communication. Can they talk to us, and can we talk with them in a realistic way and have access to each other? If we've got to wait a long time for access, that's going to be very difficult in some of these mentoring and coaching relationships. Also, initiative. Can we encourage initiative and get them to be able to do and try something? There's no such thing as being perfect, 100% perfect on anything, but can and will they be willing to try and start working with something? Because expertise comes after we start experimenting with something. We're not going to just step in and be an expert. And the third piece of this is inclusive decision making. Am I calling the shot myself as a project manager, or are we as a team being able to talk this through? Am I calling every shot myself? If I'm trying to include other people, I need to include some of the people that I'm mentoring or some of the people I'm coaching. And even with what we're talking about, for an example, a little bit later here, we're going to talk about training. Are you going to allow the mentor or mentee talk about some of the areas that they would like to study or like to be coached in, topic areas, training areas? And so if you just think I'm going to just spoon feed them the training I think they need, that might not work. So you're wanting them to be able to say, this is something that I would be interested in. So what is empowerment? It means giving a person or a group more authority, more power. It helps the person feel more substantial and confident and achieve their goal. So this is going to be a huge piece of anything we do with a person. We teach them, we train them, and then we walk through it with them as they're doing it, and then we can empower them to do the job without us being there. That's the transition for change in their behavior. So what is mentorship then? Mentorship is a relationship where an experienced person, a mentor, guides someone with less experience, a mentee. Mentorship, if received by the mentee, can help others grow, learn new skills, build confidence while achieving their goals. Somebody has mentored you and I. We have been a mentee in some situations. Have we been willing to pass that on to someone else? And that's a very important step. So some types of mentoring that you might consider. First is traditional mentorship. Now, we've seen this in business since the 60s, to where people would take someone under their wing and they would do one-on-one mentorship. Nothing wrong with that. But you can see how long it would take to get some of this going if I'm just going to spend time with one person until I get them up and then another person, and only do it in with a single person. And so because of that, many people have decided that they wanted to look at it a little bit different. The second one that you might consider is called reverse mentorship. A less experienced people become the mentors for someone more experienced. And so what that is that when you're mentoring with them, they basically are mentoring you on the gaps that they have in the industry. So they're totally in control of what they're learning. And so you're basically, as an experienced person, the mouthpiece and the answer machine, if that makes sense, to be able to answer their questions and give them direction. I love it in one of the classes, and so we advertise it all the time, the mastermind group for the PMP exam. And so we do it free. It's a 5-day class. And I love having people in there because they can ask me anything about the PMP. And so they don't have any money invested in it. They're not worrying about, am I getting my money's worth? And I can talk with them and share about the PMP and how to kind of wade through the application and get your test and get your certification. And we can talk about it. And they have nothing invested other than a little bit of time of talking with me. And so so what they want to know is driven by them, not me. I've created an environment for them, but then they ask the question. And then some will do group mentorship. Now, group mentorship is not for everybody, and it doesn't mean that everybody in the group has exactly the same needs or gaps, okay? So group of employees learning from other experienced employees. This is a benefit. We do a lot of this sometimes with on-the-job training, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it doesn't fit all the components of coaching and mentoring a person that we might want to consider. Another type would be virtual mentorship. This is what we're starting to see explode right now as people are tapping in to be able to be mentored. So it involves video conferencing, email, other remote or hybrid tools to connect and mentor in different locations. One of the reasons why we do a webinar, of course, we're giving you an hour each a month for your PDUs, but also this is a way of being able to mentor you. But listen, this is a way for you to mentor some of your people. We provide you the link to the video. We provide you the handout. This is a great way for you to be able to take one additional step and pull some of those people together that that you think some of these topics would benefit, and play the video. That's why we're giving it to you, so that you can play that video for them and use it as a talking point. Let's talk a little bit about risk, or let's talk about empowerment, and let's talk about coaching. So any of these videos, and you have access to all of them on our website, and so you have the ability to be able to go back to any of those that you would like. And as of last month, we have the whole list for 2025 already up on our site. So you have the capability of signing up for all of them, and deciding, okay, these are some of those I want to use with certain people. So this would be a great tool for you to be able to do this. The other piece would be peer-to-peer mentorship. So in other words, we're basically on the same level at the organization, but it helps build relationships and foster the team, and allows you to be able to bounce some things off. Sometimes we'll receive the information better from someone who is our peer, our coworker, than we will someone who's actually above us. And so it's not as threatening sometimes, but it's not always the right view either. Sometimes we also look at sponsorship mentorship. An influential person supports others for organizational advancement. So when you see sponsorship mentorship, in other words, you might be the person who just coordinates it, and you're kind of matchmaking who the two employees are. You're not really mentoring anybody yourself or coaching anybody yourself, but you've got certain people in the company that you think are good at this, and you're putting them with the employees that you see who have the gap. So you're the go-between to get them together. And then some are doing onboarding mentorship. It provides new employees with a mentor to learn how the organization runs. Now, many organizations, and yours maybe does this wonderfully. You'll see this in education a lot, where you're a new professor or a new teacher at a high school, and they give you a mentor so that you understand, how the culture works and how to fill the forms out, and all the silly stuff that really is important, but at the same time, you don't know and couldn't know because you're not part of that culture. So this is a great way to be able to do this. And so many times you'll have a mentor for 6 months, or you'll have a mentor for certain sections or certain things that you're doing, so that they can train you and teach you. For an example, I was just contacted. I'm a doctoral chair for Liberty, and I'm also a doctoral chair for Walden University. And so I got an email just yesterday from, I'm filling out paperwork for some of the doctoral students. And so I got an email yesterday, and the gentleman said he's going to be my coach as we go through a couple of students. And I thought, that's great, because I've not done any of this for Walden, and I have for Liberty for years, but not Walden. And so I thought, this is great to be able to walk through this. And this is a gentleman who's been doing this for a long time. So he's going to have a wealth of information of the inside of Walden and the culture of how we get a person through all of these various stages until they receive their doctorate. So this is a great idea, onboarding mentorship. Who makes the best mentee? So who should you be doing? Sometimes the people we think about that we want to do with mentoring them and coaching them, they have no interest. And you're thinking, but I've got a wealth of information to share with you. See, there has to be both sides, okay? No matter how much you and I know, and no matter how much we see potential in someone else, just because we want to mentor them or coach them does not mean that they're open to it. And so you have some people who their idea and their decisions is it. They think that they've arrived, and they don't think that they can be told anything or taught anything. That's a difficult person. And so you have to wait until they're hungry to learn something else. So here's some things to keep in mind. Is the person open-minded and receptive? Are they proactive? Are they self-motivated? Do they respect and have a professional attitude about what's happening here? Are they self-aware? Are they willing to reflect about what they've done and kind of analyze it? Are they effective in communication and open? Are they committed and consistent in what they do? What you're looking for is a person not just has potential, because a lot of people have potential. Do they have potential, and are they open to be able to be guided by somebody in your role, somebody by coaching and mentoring them? If they're not open to being guided, you're going to waste your time, and you're going to be frustrated because this person doesn't see it as a value. And I'm not going to waste my time with somebody who doesn't see it as a value. I want someone who can't hardly wait for us to meet next week, because they're getting something out of this. They're being able to walk with new steps, new thoughts, new behaviors. And so pick the right person. And so it takes both, okay? Because this is a mentoring marriage is really what it is. And so just because you see it in them doesn't mean that they do. All right, so let's talk about the mentorship process. This might help a little bit. So there are some key processes in mentoring that you need to consider. The biggest one is going to be establishing trust. Establishing trust. Next, you're trying to set some goals. Now, these goals are not for the organization, they're for the person. This is not a professional, this is not in place of a professional development plan. Your company might have that for somebody, but this is a goal between you and that mentee. What goals are you wanting to achieve with them, and what goals are they? You will jot down several goals that they want to do, and you will probably and go ahead and offer a couple of goals that you see, because once again, you're the more experienced person. So offer a couple of goals and write 2 or 3 of theirs down. And so in the next 3 months, we're going to work on these goals. And so that's a positive thing. As you do this, you're looking for skill development. You're trying to build behavior and skills into their life, okay? And then what you're looking at is self-reflection. Self-reflection needs to be a period of time when you and that mentee are talking about what they learned, what they would do differently, and it's almost like a lessons learned of of their evaluation of it, and it allows them to recycle. And so as they do a self-reflection, it's going to impact what those future goals are and what it is they're going to be learning. Now, let's talk about the first part of that, establishing trust. They're not going to trust you just because you have a position. They're not going to trust you just because you've been there for so long or you have certain credentials. That's not how trust is built. Transparency builds trust. And so if they see you as a real person, not somebody who's high and mighty, well, I'm the greatest coach of all, come and let me just spill all over you all of this information. They're not going to trust that. But transparency does. Do they see you as real? And so transparency builds trust by allowing others to see the strength and the weaknesses. And do they see you as a person who, you acknowledge something? If something goes wrong and it was you acknowledge it. That builds some of the most transparency of everything. So trust includes giving details with regular updates on a topic or a process, acknowledging one's mistakes openly, explaining the decision-making process. All of these kind of things kind of connect. And then what happens is people start trusting. You have people in your work site, in your workplace that you trust. I mean, you trust their wording. If they say something, you believe everything about it because you trust that person that much. But then sometimes what happens is there's probably some people that if they're talking, you're thinking they are lying as a dog. I mean, if their mouth is moving, someone says, I don't know if I believe him. Was his mouth moving? Then don't, and I heard that at a company and I was falling out laughing because they had so deteriorated the trust that these people said, I don't believe anything they say. The next is going to be the goal setting component. Empowerment requires the mentor to understand the long-term objective of the mentee. Schedule regular meetings, encourage a retrospective as the mentee moves through the various phases that both of you have talked about, and then focus on short-term and long-term goals. You want to see some quick hits in that person to be able to get their skills up, but you also want to see some long-term things because it might be them promoting up through your company, but listen, you might be preparing someone who doesn't stay with your organization. They might decide to go someplace else. And that's part of being a mentor and a coach too, is understanding that, I'm not selfish about this. I want them to stay. I want them to continue to be here, but they might actually go somewhere else and have a better match. Skill development focuses on identifying the gap between the skills a mentee possesses and those they desire. Mentors must evaluate the current skills of the mentee and create a priority listing of the needed skills, provide opportunities for the mentee to practice, and offer regular and consistent feedback and self-feedback. So what you're trying to do is look at what skills they need and how can we get those in. Now, you're bombarded with a ton of ways to be able to put training into your people. You have, through LinkedIn, by signing up with LinkedIn, you can have access to almost all of their courses because you are a monthly member with LinkedIn. You have them through Google. You have them through a lot of other online courses that you have the capability of doing. And so you have resources to be able to guide them in those directions. So skill development is not what it used to be because of technology. We've got so many other options for this. Self-reflection is sometimes hard for people to do. Some mentors will set aside time with the mentee for reflection. And so I'm not wanting to be the one to bring up all the reflective ideas. I want them to see it. I want them to bring it up. This builds self-assessment and a new strategy for pursuing the goals and objectives. So you evaluate the actions and decisions by identifying learning points to compare what went well and what could be done differently. And that's that's a good thing to call them too, is learning points. What did you learn from this? And so it's not a criticism. You're not putting them down. You're not ripping on them. You're looking at what did they learn. And so now what happens is that's another learning point. That's another teaching point that we might have to be able to overcome some of those areas. And so that's going to be self-reflection. The other part, as we look at empowerment processes, let's look at the key processes in empowerment: gather and value employee feedback. So this person has a perception of what's happening and how they're doing going through it, and just like you have a perception of them. Them just attending the meeting is not enough. Let me say it again. Them meeting with you once a month is not necessarily coaching and mentoring. They've got to be making progress. You're watching progress, not attendance, okay? So they could attend 100 of those meetings, but if they're not making progress, they're still not changing. So you want change every so many meetings is what you're looking for. The other side of this is setting clear expectations and boundaries. You're not holding their hands for everything. You're not giving your phone out for them to call you 24 hours a day. That's a bunch of silly stuff. So you want some structure there. You're mentoring them, but you're mentoring them in every 2 weeks or every month or every week, whatever you decide, for that 35, 45 minutes or an hour. And that's not then that's what you're doing, and you're wanting them to practice in those in-between times. So you're looking at consistency of that meeting more so than access. So when somebody's calling you all the time, you're turning into almost like a counselor with that person. You are like their safety zone, and that's not what you're wanting them to do, or they won't change those behaviors. They'll pass everything over to you and do what you say, and so what happens is you're actually preventing them from making those changes. The other thing would be providing necessary resources and training. Now, this is exciting because, as we know, artificial intelligence is coming in with so many different things, and it is going to be a component for your training. And so allowing your people, teaching your people how to write prompts that will be able to teach them the small piece that they need is going to be the next generation of training with artificial intelligence. So you need to start learning what some of those prompts are and write a prompt on how to be able to teach them how to set goals, how to be able to teach them to schedule or to do a risk analysis. It's amazing how many things AI will actually pull together. And it's not all perfectly correct. I heard someone say, well, it's not right. Well, yeah, it's not correct 100%, but most of it is correct. And so you definitely have got some value, and it's going to continue to get better over time. But you could turn it into your own professional development plan and have access to be able to customize it per mentor or per mentee. So provide necessary resources and training. The other thing would be recognize and reward autonomy. You want them thinking and doing on their own without you holding their hand. It's fine to hold their hand in the beginning, but you're trying to maneuver it to where now they're doing it. And that's where you're headed with them. And then what you're doing is encouraging decision-making and problem solving. And if there's challenges with that, you're going back to the training and going back to recognizing and trying to help them be more autonomous. That's going to be beneficial for them overall. All right, so let's talk about gather and value employee feedback. So start with check-ins on recent experiences. A check-in just means that they might even just spend 10 minutes with you about a recent experience. So they had a conflict with the customer and they were trying to deal with it for the first time. So after they've met with the customer, in other words, you've got a 10-minute meeting for a check-in. Tell me a little bit about how the meeting went. What did you think went good? What did you think went bad? That's going to help them toughen up, and that's going to help them expand their own development of some of those skills. Ask self-reflecting questions about progress. Use a 1 to 5 scale. So 5 is great. What do you think you did in this? Oh, I did 4 on that. Okay, why? I did 5 here. Okay, why? Well, I did a 1 here. Okay, why? Everything should have a why because that allows you to be able to see in the mind of the person. Summarize critical points, next steps for the person, confirm the next steps, and then ask for suggestions. And so you can ask them for any type of suggestions of someplace you can continue to help them because there might be something they want that you're not picking up on. So you ask them for suggestions. All right. So that's gathering and evaluating employee feedback. Let's go to the next, setting clear expectations and boundaries. You're not wanting this person to be dependent upon you, okay? So clarify upcoming goals and objectives, define the mentee's current responsibilities, discuss how conflicts or misunderstandings will be handled. And so you and the mentee have to talk through these things, or what's going to happen is that it's very possible the expectations will be so overloaded in one way or another that it's not going to be beneficial for both of you. Discuss how progress in the next session will be measured. And so it allows you to be able to focus on behavior and movement and goals. And that's what you're wanting to do with this. Provide necessary resources and training. Connect the mentee to training and resources so they can become equipped with skills they lack. So you are having to look for some of the skills. You are having to kind of coach them on some of this. And of course, there's a lot of training that will be pretty free for them. And if they're already tapped into LinkedIn, LinkedIn just has a ton of this. And some is better than others because of the provider. But the point is, you've got to get them to be able to attend some of the training, and they spit the bones out and they get what they need before they move forward. Possible resources, mentorship portals. Many of you maybe are familiar with Mentor Click is how they say it, and then Together is another term. LinkedIn Learning mentorship groups. You might want to go in the direction of Myers-Briggs indicators, which does a assessment of the person and their leadership skills and their personality. Conflict resolution skills, training seminars, webinars, books, ebooks, journals. I mean, if you find a good article on conflict resolution, that might be something you show the person and have them come back with some points. What did you learn from this, and where do you think the gaps are? What did they not talk about? Podcasts, shadowing, internships. Any of these can be part of your mentorship and coaching. Also, recognizing and reward autonomy that we were talking about, public recognition. I really appreciate so much what Margaret did in working with this customer and working all the way through. That might be at a meeting with all the employees. So there are times and correct times to do public recognition. Private praise for sure, specific feedback for sure, and then celebration of milestones. Congratulations, you've gotten through this. You can be happy, even though it's a baby step maybe for you, it's not for that mentee if they've never done it before. Delegating more tasks, and then ownership of those projects or those parts of the project, and then inviting input on decisions. You're thinking this, what do you think? What do you see here? And so you're using that input for the decision making as part of their development. Offering additional training or certifications, also leadership development opportunities, flexible work or project-based autonomy. Sometimes that will work for you. Bonuses, celebration of growth with peers, and and if anything, one of the things that I didn't have here, but someone goes off and they learn some new technique, have that person coach or do a training or a brown bag lunch with everybody for a couple of days to train everyone else. It's a great way to expand your training dollars and pass on more skills. Then also encourage decision-making and problem-solving. Everyone needs these types of skills. So establish a foundation of trust and psychological safety, define clear objectives and outcomes for the decision-making, develop analytical and critical thinking skills, foster ownership, accountability, and review and reflect on the decisions and problem-solving process. Teaching people how to go through the steps of solving a problem and making decisions is huge. A lot of times we do it from the gut. We do it based on a very subjective, twisted kind of way of looking at different things. And so what you're really wanting them to do is to be able to make good decisions because they're following these simple steps. But we need to be following those steps too as we do that. Now, I wanted to show you something here just to show you. I told you that one of the things that is out there is AI. You can actually go to AI and allow it to help you be able to build some type of structure for professional development for your mentor, for your mentee, or for the person you're coaching. And so just to show you this, I wrote a very simplistic prompt and I asked it to create a summary table, and I stopped at 5 because this is the size of a slide. And so I wrote about the step, I wrote about the objective, I wrote about key actions and best practices of what would be there. And so we talked about some of these, and AI actually created this for me and gave it to me. And so what's the objective? And so you'll notice, like for an example, number 2, clarify goals for decision making. How do we make decisions? And that's one of the topics that we would be talking about. And the action was a SMART goal. And so we want to talk about SMART goal. You know what a SMART goal is, but that person might not. It depends on where they are in the industry. And so the key actions is what we're talking about. You'll notice on number 3, develop analytical skills. So I use SWOT, the 5 why analysis and the pros and cons, and those are some of the things we talked about and as we did this. So just something to show you how AI could actually help you be able to come up with a schedule of what you're going to be talking about and have something a little different to be able to give that person. All right, so let's talk about challenges, because there are challenges with this. The first is going to be finding a good match. And so finding a good match, it's difficult to find a mentor who understands the mentee's needs and goals. And that's very possible. And sometimes people just don't want to share and don't feel comfortable doing that. So you've got to be able to do the matchmaking of who are we going to use and who's going to work with that person. The other piece is time commitment. Both mentors and mentees must dedicate time regularly, which can be challenging. It doesn't have to be a ton of time. We're not talking 16 hours a week, but they are going to have to maneuver a little bit of time to talk together. The other piece is going to be communication. Having clear, open communication ensures understanding and progress. And so we've got to be truthful. The mentee's got to say, I had trouble in this area, or I feel really comfortable with that. And then the third would be trust building. Developing trust will take time, and trust is essential, though, for mentorship. We've got to be able to talk about the elephant in the room sometimes, and without everybody being offended. And so we've got to be able to talk about the issue without it being a personal attack or personal feeling. All right, so let's move now into some coaching models real quick here, okay? So I want to give you 4 that are very common out here. And so each of these have an acronym, so Grow, Clear, Oscar, and Scale model. So let me show you very quickly what those are, but these are 4 very popular coaching models that are being used in the business environment. So let's talk about Grow coaching model. And so you're looking at the goal, the reality, the options, and the will. So this is what it stands for. So the goal, define the outcome, reality, assess the current situation, where are we now? Options, explore different strategies and solutions, and the will, a commitment to specific actions. So what are we getting ready to do for next steps, and are we committed to it? And so that's one of the models that people will use. So every time you meet with them, you go right through that acronym again. You're looking at what's our next goal, what's our next reality of where we are there, what's our next options, and so forth. Our next one is called Clear coaching model. So you look at a contract, these are the expectations and the goals. The L is for listen. You actively listen to understand the challenges your mentee is having so that you can help kind of diagnose what the next step would be. And then explore, you examine possibilities and identify solutions. Actions, you decide on concrete actions that are next steps. And then review, you reflect on progress and reinforce accountability. And so it allows you to be able to talk through with them what those next steps will be. Third is going to be Oscar, O-S-C-A-R, so outcome, define the coaching goal. Situation, you assess the current situation, where they are, choices and consequences, possible outcomes, actions, agreed upon specific outcomes or next steps, and then review, once again, you're examining progress and alignment. And then the next one is called Scale, S-C-A-L-E. Coaching model, so you look at the situation, identify the current situation that they're facing or getting ready to face. The challenge, you define the area for improvement. Alternatives, alternative strategies, alternative options. Likely choice, help the mentee choose a solution. Maybe they're not where they need to be to choose the solution yet. And then execute, develop an action plan. And so all of these models are just there just to give you some structure if you need that to be able to do this. And so you can see, I think they're pretty simplistic of being able to jump through each of those per session with your person to be able to have some type of documentation or some type of structure. All right, so let's talk about knowledge transfer. So let's assume you are the expert. Let's assume you are mentoring the person to pass on some of that knowledge. Knowledge transfer is huge in PMI today. And so knowledge transfer has several processes. Let me talk about these 4. And so you identify the knowledge that's going to share. You're going to organize the knowledge sharing session. You're going to use knowledge transfer tools, and you're going to evaluate the success of the transfer. So does the person know what I'm trying to transfer to them? Now, we all experience some of these challenges when we have a vendor come in and work on a project. They leave with the knowledge, and we maybe don't have that knowledge. It hasn't been transferred to us. All right, so you identify the knowledge to share. You define the scope of knowledge for transferring. You categorize the knowledge types. Is it explicit or is it tacit? Now, explicit means we can put it in a book. We can find references to it. Tacit is what's inside of me. It's what we have in our head. So I gave this example just last week with one of my university classes. When I'm teaching the PMP boot camp, the material they have in their hand is explicit. When I'm talking to them about how the question sounds, when I'm talking to them about what typically happens in a PMP test, I'm giving them the tacit piece verbally because it's from the expertise of running thousands of people through the PMP. So they get the explicit side on the book they have. It's there, it's codified. They can search anything they want. Then they get the tacit side from what I share with them. And that's where the real depth of coaching comes. So you conduct knowledge audits. Do the people know the level and the depth of that knowledge? And then you engage subject matter experts to be able to go deeper or to go with a different layer. You maintain and update knowledge regularly. So how do we keep updated? We've got to stay updated to and upskilled in order to stay current in our job. Organizing the knowledge sharing session. So defining the purpose, the target topics. So people understand what they're going to be studying and why. They create a format that fits the time, the effort, document the sessions, review and refine each session so that people are getting the very specific information they need. Then use knowledge transfer tools. For an example, knowledge management systems. Do we have centralized repositories for people to be able to pull documents and read? Do we have version control? Are we creating interactive employee training models to where people are able to learn something faster? Are we building micro-learning options? Are we tracking performance analytics on skills, knowledge, and transfer effectiveness? So a lot of times we don't think about transfer of knowledge until the project ends, and then we know what we don't know. And what you're wanting to do is transfer that knowledge all the way through so that people are growing all the way through a project or growing all the way through your coaching time rather than just at the end, you're trying to cram all this extra knowledge into them. And then evaluating the success of the transfer. Did they get it? Do you understand? And of course, if you ask them, they're going to probably say yes. Could they do the job? That's really what you're wanting to do. Could they do that job if they had to? And that's a whole different mindset there. So define success metrics, the knowledge retention, the skill application, tracking performance improvement. Did their performance change to where they are doing better in those areas? And then conducting follow-up assessments. How are they doing? And creating an ongoing improvement cycle. How can we get better? How can we grow? How can I upskill again? How can I get more skills in this area? All right. So let me close this thing, but I want to talk about the first thing. This is the new cover that Kim and Monica have just finished up, and this is called AI Insights. This will be coming out in 2025. We are going to be beginning and adding this. We're not getting rid of anything. We're adding this newsletter on artificial intelligence insights. It's going to have an article each month on artificial intelligence, and it's going to have an evaluation of some tools. So every month you'll see some tools that you'll have an opportunity to take a look at and that you'll read about. And so it's going to be pretty concise because it'll just be a few pages. But the point is, we've been working with this for a couple of years now, and it's something that we see impacting us as we've created a program on artificial intelligence and project management, and we're starting to see how this is filtering into all of our training. So we're excited about this, AI Insights, and so it will be coming out in January of 2025, and so I just wanted to introduce you and show you the cover. Cover just got approved for everything just yesterday. Monica and Kim just got this together, and we just got to look at it and agreed on it yesterday, and so that's coming up. The other thing that's happening is these are our future webinars that we have already happening. We've got the entire year already up there for next year of 2025. You can sign up for all of them, sign up once a month, it doesn't matter, all of them free. And so January 17th, our next one will be on the enterprise PMO, how to stay relevant in a changing world. The PMO's having to change like crazy because of remote workers, one thing, but also just the amount of projects people are running like that. And then in February, the role of emotional intelligence in project management. If you've not studied emotional intelligence or been through the training with me, this is a great way to wet your whistle about being able to work with emotional intelligence in project management, how to control yourself, which helps you control a lot of the situations. Not fully, but it helps you be able to control more than you think. And then in March, the art of change management, using projects for guiding organizations through transformation. This is a new thrust that PMI is hitting in a lot of their material, is that we're not just running a project, we're making changes to our companies and to our organizations by running these projects. And so it's a strategic thing more so than a tactical thing. So anyway, these are some of the future webinars for next year. So we're excited about that. And then boot camps, PMP exam prep boot camps, we'll start our first one. These are all virtual, instructor led. I do every one of these that's listed here. And so we'll start that in February 3rd through 6th. And so if you're interested in being part of that or know someone, that's great. But one of the other things, let me see. Oh, I don't have it up here. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, though, was just give you some information and email and website. If you need something or are wanting to talk about something or need some insights on something, contact me. I talk to people all the time, or I send emails back and forth with people all the time who are having hiccups with their projects. And so some of them are companies I've never been to before. So it's not a problem for you to send something to me and ask me some questions about it. I'll be glad to be able to answer that or give you something. So as we get ready to bring this to a close then this morning, so let me thank you so much for being here. Man, you're just around the corner. Christmas is coming. I know the holidays are there. And so I appreciate so much that you're willing to spend the time. I wanted to mention something. Thank you so much for some of the comments from many of you. Last month, I was planning on being here, and at the last minute, I had to have a little surgery thing. And so I made the video, and the video got sent out to you. And so everything's good, but I thought, okay, I still wanted that video to go to you guys on our topic last month. So thank you so much for many of you checking on me and just saying, hey, are you okay? I'm fine. So, Wanda hit me and broke something. You know how that goes. So I'm just teasing. But anyway, it's one of those things to where it just happened. And so I appreciate so much that you're here today. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. And so God bless you guys. And I'll see you in 2025 as we kick this thing off again. Okay. Bye, everybody. Merry Christmas. I hope you have a wonderful time with the holidays. Bye, folks.